What's good, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and ladies and gents, boys and girls, Duggers and Digettes, what we're going to be talking about today is the King of Skies himself, Rahtalos, in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Now, I probably made a video on Rahtalos like 1,000 times, so what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to do the majority of this video off the top of my head. So without further ado, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate's Rahtalos is a really cool creature because he's a lot like all the other Rahtalos before him, but a lot more refined. There's a lot of quirks about him that make him say, oh yeah, he's still old world, but at the same time, he's delightful to actually fight. Versus back in the day where he was much more rough. But with that said, he is a fire wyvern, meaning that he is technically supposed to be weak to water, because that's, you know, what fire kind of does. But his actual weaknesses are thunder, or electricity, or whatever the heck you want to call it, and dragon. Now, mind you, when you go to fight him for the first time, you may have a few hints of electricity. Dragon, probably not so much. I do know there's a couple of full metal path weapons that you could probably use that'll give you some electricity. I'm thinking the Chain Slaughter Longsword and the, I forget what it's called, but it's a lance. It's pure metal that gives you some thunder element as well. His weaknesses have been the same for forever, and it's the same weaknesses of that of the Rathian. So if you fought Rathian, you've had a weapon to actually fight Rathian successfully with, you can use that same weapon, if it's upgraded by now, to fight Rahtalos here. Outside of that, the thing that Rahtalos is actually known for is to be, quote-unquote, the King of the Skies. And why is that? Well, it's because he likes to stay in the air quite a lot. That's 95% of his game plan. Stay in the air, shoot fireballs, and hit you with the funky toenail from time to time. So for the most part, to actually fire Rahtalos, you're going to really want him to be on the ground as often as possible. You can do this a number of ways. Forcing him to the ground by using flash bombs when he takes flight, knocking him out of the sky onto the ground. Being very selective when you actually do swing on him, like hitting his feet when he's kind of low to the ground, hitting his tail, knocking him, dunking him. That's what we used to call it, dunking him from the sky to the ground. That sort of thing. I do that a few times within this particular hunt right here because I kind of know how to get it done. But these are the things you're going to want to really do to actually keep him on the ground. But when he is on the ground, you're actually going to swing on him. His head is his main weakness, of course. Cutting his tail does really nothing besides giving you the chance to get the plate. But it's also something I like to save for later because, like I said before, using his tail as a means to cut him, knock him down from the sky, because that hitbox kind of extends down a little bit further than, you know, any other hitbox that he has. It does help in that regard. But he has a couple of attacks to necessarily watch out for. That is his fireball attack. His fireball attack comes in many flavors, but just note that the ones you really want to watch out for is the jump back fireball, the MJ if you will, the fade away fireball. He'll do this after he roars. So like you'll hit him or whatever, then he roars, then you're stuck in, like, I guess roar stun or whatever. Then he'll do the jump back fireball. That attack happens to be not necessarily a strongest attack, but I feel like it might be. Because whenever you get hit with it, you're just praying that you don't actually lose 85% of your health whenever it does. So, all things considered, the jump back fireball is annoying. His standard fireballs, you don't really get hit with. I mean, you can, but for the most part, you'll probably see it coming. You can get out of the way. The jump back fireball is so dangerous because you're locked into not moving if you don't have earplugs. He also has the fireball where he'll go into the sky, shoot three fireballs. I believe in a row, because I think Azure Rahtalos is the one where he can selectively choose where he's going to shoot these fireballs. Nevertheless, he's going to go into the sky to do that. So if you position yourself correctly, you're going to be at a pretty decent spot, so that way when he comes straight down, you can just smack him in the head and call it a day. Another attack that I mentioned previously was the Funky Toenail. It is the code name to an attack that I lovingly refer to as such. It's just whenever he's in the sky, he'll shoot down, he'll track to you and claw at you with his talons. That will automatically poison you if hit by it, so be careful when you get hit with it. I call it the Funky Toenail because why else are his talons poisoning you if themselves weren't funky and got the bunions on it with the toe fungus, you know what I mean? Yeah, so as far as the attacks go, that's predominantly it. What makes him so annoying is that he stays in the sky all the time. That's why people don't like him so much. He loves spamming his fireball attacks. He likes getting in the sky and spamming fireball attacks. He's not a very tough monster to fight. He just hits kind of hard depending on when you go to fight him. So all in all, if you're pretty decent at fighting flying wyverns, to be fair, I like to think that pound for pound, the Rathian is probably the harder fight because the Rathian likes to come on the ground and smack the heck out of you. It also has the tail flip. and not necessarily all the fireball attacks, but some fireball attacks. So realistically, the Raytheon, if you can do the Raytheon pretty well, the Rathalos shouldn't give you too much trouble. But because the Rathalos himself is a flagship monster, he is the Mac Daddy of Monster Hunter himself. He is Monster Hunter. He's on every, like, collaborative anything to do with Monster Hunter, Raid Shadow Legends, Metal Gear Solid, Monster Hunter, Marvel vs. Capcom, etc., etc. So you're gonna see him everywhere outside of this game. Being the big flagship of the game, his gear is also very good. They're not stupid flashy skills, but they're very, very good skills that are traditionally some of, not like the best, but some of the more useful skills. What I'm getting at here is more attack. How do you kill monsters? You beat them to death. And with more attack, it takes less swings to beat a monster to death. Always a good skill to have, attack large. So let's check the skills, and of course, because he's the flagship, he has a weapon for everyone. So as far as Rahtalos' weapons go, they aren't necessarily the highest attacking weapons in the game. They have above average attack power, but the thing that you really need to watch out for, not necessarily watch out, it's not going to swing on you, but the thing to note from his weapons is the unusually high element in most cases. So depending on like when you go to get the weapon itself, it could be, in this game at least, it could be a regular Rahtalos, it could be a silver Rahtalos, it could be an azure Rahtalos, because in this game, up until I want to say for you, a monster's weapon will fade into later iterations of that monster. So a Rahtalos weapon will turn into an azure Rahtalos weapon, which will indeed turn into a silver Rahtalos weapon. And under certain circumstances, will it actually branch out slightly away from it, so it actually end up being an azure Rahtalos weapon. But if you go down a different path, it's going to end up being a silver Rahtalos weapon. Nevertheless, his attack, like I said, isn't the most high. It is above average, but the element is actually what's quite high. It has lots of fire. Mind you, in this game in particular, I'm not going to spoil it yet, but he doesn't have the highest fire elemental weapon, but he has like some of the best fire element. His sharpness is pretty decent. Not necessarily like purple good, but you know, you get some decent white out of it. So, I mean, his stuff is always viable. If you need a fire weapon, a Rahtalos weapon is always going to be very good for you. There are some instances, few instances, where like Ignactor might be slightly better, especially if like, you don't necessarily care for a certain thing like the element itself. Let's say you want to go for better sharpness. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Ignactor longsword has blue sharpness before Rahtalos has blue sharpness, and the attack stats are kind of the same. So there's that particular bread and butter there, but for the most part, that's just how his weapons work. Now, his armor, though. His armor, like I said, has always been pretty decent. In this case, it always gives you attack medium, whether it's low, high, or G rank. Now, in low rank, it's a little harder to get to the attack large, but in G rank, it's like really easy to get the attack large. Outside of attack large, or attack rather, he gives you speed sharpening, which reduces the speed in which it takes for you to sharpen your weapon, which is always very nice. I love that skill personally. If I can't get that skill on an armor set, I almost always eat for it. And you get many points into fire attack, crit draw, and I think you also get like recovery down. That's his negative skill, but realistically you can probably just gem that out with like one thing and it's not a huge issue, and then your recovery isn't that bad. But the core skills being attack, speed sharpening, and let's say fire attack, because you know it's like right there, you can kind of gem it in. If anything, you look at it as like, okay, fire damage, go burr, because you got your attack going up, you got your fire elemental attack going up. If your weapon doles out, you can sharpen it very quickly, keeping your DPS up instead of like, because you know how it is, when you pull the whetstone out to sharpen your weapon, that's like 30 seconds. It, not really, but it feels like 30-40 seconds, like 10 hours to sharpen your weapon. But with speed sharpening, shink, do it one time and you're good to go, and you're back into the action. His armor set is basically geared towards you doing lots of damage as fast as possible, especially with the fire element that actually gives off his weapons, which has a high elemental attack stat like we spoke about earlier. And his armor definitely melds perfectly well with him using his own weapons to do the damage, which is fine. So like whenever you see yourself saying, hey, I need to fight a monster that's susceptible to fire damage, using a Rahtalos weapon is going to be that bad to do. Nevertheless, the armor, like I said, very good for flagship. I would recommend it every single game, every single time. If you can get it, it's a little hard to get because it does require a plate or a ruby or a mantle, because these are some of the harder materials to get. But yes, get them if you can, because you're not going to be disappointed with the results. So to wrap it up here, Rahtalos is the flagship monster of Monster Hunter. he is the granddaddy of Monster Hunter, okay? He's in every other game on the planet that has Monster Hunter in it, be it Exoprimal, be it whatever else that he's into. He's always going to be there in some shape or form. If he himself, not necessarily, I mean, he's in freaking Smash Bros. Like, what the heck, bro? But nevertheless, he is a monster that has changed quite a lot over the years. But at least so far as this game is necessarily concerned, not a whole lot has changed. He's definitely changed for the better, losing a lot of the jank of the older generations, but not necessarily coming into his own in the newer generations where he has a lot more flair and stuff to give. With that said, he does have a couple of attacks you should watch out for. The jump back fireball, the fadeaway fireball, whatever you want to call it, like I said, after the roar, is a very potent attack because it locks you down in position and then he shoots you with the fireball, causing lots of damage. There's also the funky toenail, i.e. the claw talon thing, homing attack from the skies that he can do that'll automatically poison you. It's not until the later iterations of him, I think it's the Rahtalos, where he can poison and stun you at the same time with it. Again, something to watch out for because being poisoned is never good, causing you to run around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to abate the side effects of the poison. So just kind of understand the position he takes himself into when he goes to do it. He'll climb up to the sky, kind of curl his feet up a little bit, and you kind of see it coming. Just stay up directly underneath him as close as possible because he can't actually do it directly underneath himself, but he can do it way off into the distance if you try to give yourself a lot of distance between you and him. It's not necessarily advised to do so. Speaking of giving yourself some distance, he can shoot the fireball out into range. Granted though, the fireball is kind of slow and he kind of sits there. He has a huge tail to do it. It's actually advantageous for you to bait him into doing fireball at a far distance, so that way you can force yourself to use, not necessarily force, but give yourself time to use like potions, heal up, sharpen, whatever you have to do. So the only fireball to truly worry about is the jump back fireball. Like I said, he is weak to that of dragon and electric attacks, so be if you have an electrical weapon of that Lagiacrus or some kind of metal weapon path, or if you have a dragon weapon, use these tools to actually do the most damage to him. It isn't until his later iterations where he's no longer susceptible to that of dragon, but electric is still relatively useful to actually have on him. So if anything, worst case scenario, if you're fighting a Rahtalos variant, electric damage is going to be a very versatile damage typing to use against him. Outside of that, everyone, I think that's pretty much everything I can say about Rahtalos in the 3rd generation. He's a very solid monster, lots of fun to actually fight. He's the cut and true flying wyvern. I personally like him a little less than that of the Raytheon, who I feel has always been a better fight in every game, time over time. But he is a fun fight to actually, go up against. He is one that you can actually see yourself getting carded to. He does have a lot of little bitty combo strings that'll force into a bad situation, so you should really watch out for being too careless in front of him, because all it takes is one stun or one fireball to put you on the back foot, forcing you to run around and try to like heal off the damage, when he can just use this wind pressure from his flights, because he's always in the air, mind you, to put you in a spot where you just take the fat L. But with that being said, everyone, it's been your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know who you want to see next. However, though, even though I say that, if no one tells me what they want to see next, I already have a video planned afterwards. But with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.